Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for Talkback and our final showing of Ohio State Murders. A little bit about myself tonight, as I will be moderating. I'm Jordan Lewis. I'm a junior at Rollins and a theater major. I have no minors because I spent all my life in the Annie. I was the dramaturg for this production, which means I did a lot of the research on the script and the concepts and the different literary items in it. Let's start right ahead and introduce our guest for tonight. We have Jayanne Gilkey. She played the split role of young Suzanne in Ohio State Murders. She's a junior majoring in theater arts with an emphasis in performance, double minoring in film studies and studio art. She's so thankful to be part of such an important and powerful show with so many special, talented people, and hope that you all were moved by it in the same way that she was working on it. It's an experience she'll never forget. Up next is Dassica. She played the split role of young Suzanne in the ensemble in Ohio State Murders. She's a junior majoring in theater with an emphasis in performance and double minoring in film studies and studio art. She's grateful that she had the opportunity to work on such a special show with this powerful cast and crew to share an important story of the Black experience with others. She's honored to play a part in the history of the Annie's first production written by a Black playwright and is looking forward to continue to push for more of these productions. Next, we have Ma Brusa Monkwa. She had her first role as Aunt Lou for the play. She's a senior with a major in theater arts and an emphasis in performance and a minor in Spanish. She couldn't believe that her name was on the cast list, so finally having the experience to be a part of the Annie show made her jump for joy. Next, we have Marina Russell. She's a theater arts major in her junior year, and she's so thankful to have been a part of this amazing production with a wonderful and talented cast and crew. Finally, we have our faculty set designer, Lisa Cody Report. She collaborated with the directing team and each performer on finding their locations, setting up camera angles, making props, supporting the play by underlining the institutional racism within the private environment of the 1950s Ohio State University. She's been so honored to work with such a dedicated team of theater artists to bring this luminous, intimate story to life. I'm so excited, and oh no, I read our private chat and it says the first question is for me. So it's from Gina. How was it being the dramaturg for such a historically important show? It was insane in so many ways. I think I remember working on the Box project where we went through and realized we'd never done a show by a Black playwright on the Annie's 88 years. And so it was really important for me to find a way to involve myself with it. And I just reached out and I said, can I research this? I've never done it before. And it was really awesome. And Hillary, our director, was there every step of the way with me. And I read books I think I never would have before. And I got to really compare to what's happening in the show to our university we're at now and help the cast understand the gravity of what we were talking about. I really loved it. Do we have any other questions? I have a question for Lisa, if you want to start us. What was it like trying to design backgrounds over Zoom?
Wow, that it was actually a lot of fun. It was a challenge. What I did was I took some of the concept that we had for when we were going to do it on the stage originally, where we sort of were creating a sense of a cage or this sense of this environment that was so restrictive. For Suzanne, where we used the stacks of the library, the spines of all the bookcases. Since it was going to be an arena, you couldn't make things super high. But they went up about 8 feet, just the poles. But it was this restrictive feeling. And so when we went to Zoom, it was looking at whenever they were in any environment that involved the university, which was most of them, that we found architectural elements or structure in their backgrounds that kind of gave that feeling of boxed or restriction. So that was interesting. It was fun to do. It was so cool to collaborate with each person, going online and talking with them and seeing how the camera angles set up and what we could use and what we couldn't use.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah. For all the actors, what was it like rehearsing over Zoom?
Oh. Well, it's definitely different than walking to the Annie and then getting on stage, but having the comfort to rehearse from like your own dorm, it was pretty easy. But of course, with Zoom, it comes with its own ups and downs because you have to be in the right position, you have to be in the right location. It's do you wear your costume, do you not wear your costume? And it was definitely different, but also very fun and interesting to rehearse for a virtual show.
Yeah, definitely another challenge was sort of just the technical difficulties that you could possibly have. When recording, there would be like difficulties with the microphones. We had to keep on doing mic checks and everything. And especially considering we live in the same house. So like we were like pretty close to each other in proximity. So if we were like in the same scene or anything, which that usually didn't happen, then we had to turn off one of our speakers and then like the other person turn theirs on. So it was an interesting experience to work with, but it was cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the technical stuff was a lot of new things to learn how to deal with. But also, like once we added the black and white filter to the 1950s characters, that really set a really cool new mood, and I think it helped me really get into the vibe of the characters and the memory and the feeling for that helped our acting, and also it was surprisingly easy to connect with scene partners across the screen, even though when we were looking into the camera for our scenes, I felt like there was so much like character connection across Zoom. So that was really cool to find out.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add on, it was just really cool in general, like experimenting with Zoom and like what things we could do to bring the show to life that usually would be way different on stage. And we worked a lot with like filters and everything, and we thought that was cool, bringing in black and white, especially for the 1950s effect and everything. But then also like, it was funny because we got some like feedback from people about like the audio and the like quality of it, and they were like, "Oh, like, did you do that on purpose? Was it because it sounded kind of like old school, like 1950s?" And we were like, "Oh, no, it was just our computers, but but it worked out." Like, yeah. So it was just cool the way that things worked out, kind of to be in the favor of the show.
Awesome. I think we have another question from Gina for Daska and Jayanne. How did you feel when you both were cast, and did you work on your own unique versions of young Suzanne?
Yeah, it was really cool seeing that we were both cast, and when we first saw it, we were like, "Oh wow, like they split the role. Like, how's this gonna work?" And it was really cool because they told us that, and we could see it too, that we both played Suzanne or young Suzanne in a different way. Yeah, and like in our auditions and callbacks and everything, the director told us that like I kind of portrayed a little bit more of an innocence for young Suzanne, and my view on her, and then Daska's was a little bit darker. So I thought that was interesting that we could both bring that type of like version of Suzanne, especially as her life, she grew and she changed so much towards the end of the play. So after she had to go through that trauma, then it showed through the difference in our characters. And I thought that was really interesting to sort of see play out. Yeah, and it was cool being able to work with each other too, because we are twins and like living in the same household, then we would often like get together and just kind of work on some character ideas and things, and character building with each other, especially being the actual like same character. Then we're like, oh, like how can we kind of connect these so they're not like too drastically different, but to still keep that same like Suzanne like centered.
We have from Nancy for the young Suzannes again. Can you talk about your pacing, your choices you gave to the voice, how you gave voice to the written words?
Yeah, so in one of the scenes, it was scene 8, the one where Hardy or Professor Hampshire reads from Hardy, and that one was a really interesting, cool scene to work with because we were reading lines from Tess of the D'Urbervilles, but I kind of was trying to, or like Suzanne was trying to see herself as Tess in the book, so I would kind of read from the book, but then had it memorized, so I would like kind of say it to him, and I thought that was a really interesting experience because I went through like trying to think of it in my mind as Tess, so then I don't know how to like explain it, just yeah, it kind of did sound poetic because the way that the words are written it's so beautiful, and just I thought it was really cool, kind of trying to not only be Suzanne in that moment, but then kind of trying to be Tess, and yeah, especially because books move her in such a way. So even I kind of experienced the same thing with reading. I think it was also Tess of the D'Urbervilles in one of the scenes about um, Bunny and the like white students and stuff, and just kind of reading from that book, talking about how much more comfortable I felt in my own dorm room to myself with my books. It was just cool to kind of connect my feelings with the book itself, but then just also with my life. So, and kind of that connection to Hampshire too.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We have our next question from Tiara, who was our hair and makeup designer for this show. Which aspects of yourself did you bring to your characters? Ma, do you want to start?
Of course, happy to. Well, when I first like saw that I was cast as Aunt Lou, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So now it's like, how am I going to perceive this character? Because of course, like she's a lot older than I am, obviously, so I can't be all like, giddy like I'm in college. So I actually wanted to like first thought like, okay, how do I want her to sound? Because I was like, should I just use my normal voice or should I use a different voice? But Dr. Cooperman says like, just use your natural voice. It's like, okay, sure. But then she also said like, also try to put like a motherly side to Aunt Lou, but then also like a sassy side, because she probably has been through a lot more than Suzanne, because, being a young Black woman and then in the 1950s. And I mean, I really thought that I would put like more of like, oh yeah, I care, but it's like, if you mess with me, I have to cut you. I'm sorry. So I feel like it was a mixture of both the kind, but then also the sassy side of myself that I brought to Aunt Lou.
Marina, do you want to answer?
Yes. Yeah, so that's interesting because at first thought, I'm like, well, I'm not sure if I'm very similar to my characters. I hope I'm not. They definitely have, very different beliefs than I do, especially like Miss Dawson, the headmistress type of character. So I guess one thing that did come to my mind was like my ensemble roles, where I wasn't technically like a character in Suzanne's world, but more just for the images that the ensemble created. We talked a lot, and we built a lot of our characters organically, as well as the images, and that was a great collaborative process. And so I kind of felt like me as an ensemble character, I felt like I was playing myself and what is my role in this production as a whole. So I felt like as an ensemble character, my role was to support the characters and give focus to the characters who are telling this story. And that felt cool. It felt a little bit like outside of the play. It's just kind of giving focus and giving my full attention to them in order to uplift this story even more. And yeah, and definitely my interpretation of all of my characters has my own character coming through in them. But yeah, it was definitely difficult to get into the headspace of some of the more older characters who were very mean to Suzanne. But that I know that it was important to play that as honestly and like naturally as I could, because like a lot of people, I guess, can be nice, but be very intimidating and mean and hateful, even though they come across as nice or cool or calm. So yeah.
Twins, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it was like interesting because knowing that Jayanne was playing kind of the more innocent, younger Suzanne, but then as I got to my character, she already went through a little bit of more trauma. So I tried to use like some of my experience with racism or knowing of other people's experiences, especially things that happened like this past summer or just history in general, and trying to kind of take some of that weight and putting it into my performance, I think was really, it was a really different experience for me because this character, out of like any character I've played before, has had the most like weight to her and depth. Yeah, and overall, it was just a nice growing experience for myself too. I learned a lot about history and myself, and working with everybody too was just so moving. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, I was just also gonna say, yeah, I think this definitely was my favorite show I've ever been on. I think because also just the people that we worked with, the cast and crew, everybody got so close, even if it was on Zoom, and it just was such a special experience. And I feel like I was honored to get to share that with everybody. But also to answer the question, yeah, I feel like I kind of brought a little bit of myself in this too. I'm like I felt like I had a connection to Suzanne. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Continue.
Oh, I felt like I also kind of had a connection to Suzanne just in the way that she loves movies and she loves like books, and she like gets in her own world and everything too. So I felt like that was an interesting thing that first drew me to her. And she talks about like Battleship Potemkin, and I watched that recently in a film class. So I thought that was such a cool connection because I was like, what? I actually have seen that before, so I can kind of understand what she was talking about in that scene and what she was experiencing and everything. But yeah.
Thank you. For Lisa, we have a question for you. Was this a tribute to theater noir?
That's a really interesting question because I was thinking, oh, because it's dark and you have the blinds and things like that. One thing that I thought was interesting, plus it was black and white. So I don't think most would know this, but when we were planning originally to have it on stage, we had this concept that evolved that was really cool of having sheer fabric, like chiffon, black chiffon pieces that there would be all the furniture set up for the different places they were all around the stage. And as Suzanne walked through the library and remembered something, she would either pull off the fabric or the actresses themselves would pull their fabric off, do their scene, and then put it back on. So I know when it switched over, it was a combination of thinking of 50s black and white film, but also that idea that we'd had that it literally, everything in the past had this sort of cover on it that she would remove to re-experience it. So I thought that's really cool. Theater noir, I like that. I hope that answers.
I think we have another question for Ma from Gina. She said, your voice is so beautiful, which I agree. Can you talk a little bit about the musical choices you made?
Oh, well, first of all, I was very excited to find out that I would be singing as Aunt Lou. So it was like, wow, cool. So, with some help from Tiara, she was saying, because there was some directions of like Aunt Lou singing. It was like, oh, so what should I sing? Like, should I sing songs I know? It's like, but then she's like, sing songs that are like reminding of the 50s, like or songs that are like unfamiliar. So I actually like researched a bit and went on YouTube and to see popular songs that talked about like racism or like the kind of like serious topics about like being free and stuff like that. And so I came across Wade in the Water and was like, okay, so this is really good. And of course I wanted it to sound very good. And of course, I didn't want to sing the whole song. So it's like, which part would be pretty easy to learn so that it could like really connect with the play. And so after I showed it to Tiara, she was like, oh yeah, sure, go for that. So it was just really knowing which songs would work and which ones I could do like just like that.
Thank you so much. I have another question for Lisa. Would you, for this production, did our production meeting, so how did you figure out managing and organizing a virtual team?
I'm not sure I ever completely figured out how to manage it, but I would just try to check with everyone as much as possible in each area and just make sure that we stayed in order, and that if there was anything I needed to find out for people, that I could do that. And I mean, to give credit, Kevin Griffin, department chair now, and our production manager for the department, had a pretty awesome setup schedule that I could just kind of fit our show into. But I found that so many things we do in theater, we ended up not needing for the Zoom. It kind of changed it a bit. So I thought that was interesting. Just tried to kind of keep everyone connected if possible.
For Marina, from Gina, I know you are the improvisation queen. So how did this platform help or hinder your ability to come up with ideas within Zoom boxes?
Oh, oh, Gina. I love you, Gina. Wow, I don't know. Definitely, it was, like I said, it's a very collaborative process. Like we were all encouraged to bring our own ideas and creative suggestions and offerings for especially like thematic words that Hillary, our director, would bring up to us. And so we would then create our own take on that word, thematic word, and then make some kind of image within our Zoom box. And then like 9 of us would be on screen with a different image. And that was really interesting because that was very improvisational. It was very like in the moment, what are we gonna do? Just take what you think of this word and then make it into something. And so that's how we came up with a lot of our images for the ensemble scenes. And so that was definitely a place where improv really helped. And I think everyone did a great job of just taking those words to heart, like isolation and hardship and struggle and balance and all that. It was really cool to see what everyone came up with. And also, cast members would help each other, and if someone maybe couldn't think of quite what to do, someone else would bring an offering. And so it was a really great space to just play with each other, and yeah, and it was really fun.
Yeah, I think that was like some of my favorite scenes were the ensemble scenes because of the energy that we got to create with everyone, and it got to include like more opportunities for people to express things too, and especially regarding how like different it was on Zoom than on stage. On stage, everyone could have just easily been in there, but we had to kind of think of like strategically which scenes would work better with the ensemble added, or if they would be better, kind of more raw, I guess.
Thank you guys so much. So for everyone, we'll start with Dassica. What was the most challenging part of playing your characters?
That's so like, I mean, there was like a lot of kind of challenging parts, that especially knowing how much depth she has, but also just knowing that I wanted to still be able to have her connect to both Jayanne and Faith, because all three like were in different sections of her life, and I think just being able to keep that consistency while also maintaining my own view of her character and the things she's going through. It was just interesting being able to work with like all three. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I think I would say something kind of similar, because since mine was like the youngest young Suzanne, it was kind of a little bit different because I didn't go through as much as the other two, but I still had my own experiences of like racism and everything, especially with Miss Dawson and like the white girls. So, but I didn't have as large of the trauma as then the murders of her babies and like that sort of thing. But I still feel like there was a sense of kind of, I had to bring the joy in her too, but then also still the hardships that she was bringing, or that she was facing, and like still the strength that she had even at that time. And yeah. Oh, and also just the I was still going to point out the connection to Hampshire was an interesting kind of thing to explore because of how it also was virtual. Then I thought it was interesting playing around with that. Yeah, and she kind of went through like a growth with Hampshire as well. Like she was kind of more like interested in him, but then once we got to meet, it was kind of more like, oh gosh, like what's he going through right now? Like it was just funny seeing the dichotomies and things, and how she would deal with them differently, especially even like in the Val scene or something. She was kind of already noticing things about him, not wanting to pay attention to her when she was holding Carol, and he seemed uncomfortable. Just those little things. It was special to be able to try to portray.
Is anybody else? Marina, Ma? Do you guys have some challenges?
Ma, do you want to go first?
I don't mind if you go. I can go after you.
Okay. Well, just real quick, for me, definitely playing my more like I guess hateful characters. They're not nice people, or maybe they're nice, but they're not good people. And so my challenge was playing my characters not as cartoonish caricature villains, which was more easy for me to fall into. And that's something that I was tending to play them a little bit more cartoonish and not realistically or not natural and cool enough. So that was my challenge. But it makes sense because making them more just natural and realistic it definitely makes it bite a little more. It's more biting and more realistic to what it's like in the world and how these interactions happen in real life. So yeah, and also and that goes along with kind of acting for a camera and for a Zoom box where we're so close to the screen, we have to bring our performance down to fit inside our box. And being used to being on the stage where the performances are so much bigger, I think that was also making me tend to be a little more caricature-like. But yeah, that was my challenge.
For me, being Aunt Lou was just like I felt like I wasn't consistent enough with my voice, like at least a natural voice, because it was like I felt like I was like being her, but then like going back to like me, like outside of the costume. And I've always thought like, was I bringing enough like authenticity to Aunt Lou? Was I being real enough? Could you see me like Aunt Lou if you didn't know who I was or anything? So it's just like. So I guess it was just a worry of like, was I being fake? Could you tell I was being serious, you know? And yeah, so I guess those were my biggest challenges during this whole process.
Thank you so much. We have another question. At a time when Black Lives Matter is so prevalent, how is it to do a show like this at a predominantly white school? I can start there. One of our first rehearsals, we went over my presentation, a lot of research I did, and we went through the parallels we had between Ohio State in the 50s and the things we have at Rollins right now. And sadly, there are still a lot of parallels we're facing. You know, a lot of only having one Black sorority on campus and they don't even have a house is very similar to what Suzanne dealt with in the script, and kind of feeling that tension, especially just in the dorm and she's not feeling welcome. She's not around people who look like her. She's trying to walk down a certain street and people may feel weird walking down Park Avenue for us because they feel out of place. So I think it was really important for us to do a show with so many parallels to our real life because it brought more attention to what's happening in our lives. And also it made it easier not to speak for the actors, but I think it made it easier for people to connect to their characters and really put themselves in that position.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I can't believe how much that actually like did help, especially everything that went on this past summer. I feel like already strengthened my views even more, like, and being able to bring that into the play and especially to a predominantly white school, I was a little bit like, oh, how's everybody gonna take it? It is pretty like heavy stuff, but this is actually like things that happen like in history, and it's still going on today. So I think it was really important that we brought awareness to it, and hopefully we can continue doing that through the future in the Annie.
Yeah, it was really amazing to bring such a focus to these topics, to our little world and our campus here at Rollins, because it does make it more personal. And just, I have to say, that first day when we went over Jordan's presentation, Jordan, you did such an amazing job, and it was so good. It was so amazing, and so in depth, and it just sparked such an amazing conversation, and people were so open and honest and vulnerable, and it was just a great space to listen. And I've seen that conversation continue throughout the entire rehearsal process, and also in these talkbacks, and I know that conversation is happening all around the campus, and I think that is so cool that now we're talking, and it's really cool to be able to listen to the stories and the experiences, and also be a part of the space that can talk about these things openly and freely. And yeah, so it's been a blessing.
Thank you so much, Ma.
Well, I don't want to be a downer, but I just don't know what it's going to take. I mean, you would think that things were actually improving, but then the whole George Floyd, Breonna Taylor out of nowhere, and then it's like it's back to all over again. It just feels like no matter what we do or whoever does, and with this play, even though it brings awareness, like there's still, I guess, just feels like there's a worry, like, is anything seriously going to change? It might change for a few people, but there's still like the whole of America and even past America. So it's just what is it going to take to actually change people's minds that everyone matters, no matter what you look like? So that's my point. Sorry to be a downer.
No, Ma, we appreciate it. Lisa.
Yeah. I hear you, Ma. You know, I think I can only imagine that it must feel very frustrating. I think that there's at least what we're trying to do is tell these stories and share these stories, and hopefully there's an empathy that's created, a realization of a human bond that we all have, and that people aren't so separate and aren't so different. I think that's what theater strives to do. I know that the department is incredibly committed to making changes, to making any kind of a break with the past that has been problematic, and to bring these stories every year, to try to find them, and to bring artists that have graduated from our school or that are professionals in, to make it a much more diverse season. So I think it's something that we've made a big commitment to support it in any way that we can. And we are an outward-facing organization. So as people start to come and see our shows and listen and get a sense of empathy and a sense of understanding other people, I think that's going to help a great deal. It's going to at least start. It's what we can do, right? That we want to make the effort, and we're committed to making the effort.
And Lisa, your answer actually touched on the last question we have. Gina asked, what do you think about the future of Rollins shows and what the department can learn from this show? So do you have more you want to say, or?
I'm not sure because again, now that I read that, I'm like, oh, okay. No, I just think, like I said, I think that the response to it has already been really great. I've been seeing some of that. I think that it was so exciting to bring people in, with Zoom, being able to bring in past graduates already, like immediately. This commitment the department's made, and we did it immediately. So yeah, I just think, I know there's been so many conversations over the summer in our department. There are all these things that we're looking at doing and changing. So yeah, I think it's making a big difference in the department, at least in our department. We're starting there. And we're just going to see how far we can go with that.
Twins?
Yeah, I was also just gonna say that's really important, and I was also just gonna say how honored I was to be able to be in this production, as it was one of the first, or the first one written by a Black playwright, and just getting to share this opportunity with everybody else, and also, as Marina and Ma have stated, are getting to discuss our experiences with everybody else, and listening to everybody talk about what they went through, what they've seen, and just the importance of this show in general to be able to share out into the world. Yeah, like I feel like if we kind of keep this momentum going with certain shows that would spark such a conversation, I think that's really important, because it's not like this stuff like isn't going on today or anything. Then I also just think that would be really important to keep not only race shows, but then just shows about women, like all of those. They really impacted a lot for the stage and everything.
Thank you so much. Ma or Marina, do you have anything?
I kind of forgot what the question was asking. Okay. Well, I think Rollins is on a good path, and especially letting other stories in, especially like ones by women, Black women. They could even like do better. They could even like go further and like maybe it's like people who are transgender, LGBTQ and stuff, because there are lots of stories out there, and like it didn't stop us from doing this show like Szechuan, and I don't see like the harm in like doing plays that are like, like very that really relate to what we're dealing with now in the world currently. So it's just like this kind of thing is not forgotten. Like we're just reminding you like what's going on. So I just feel like as we keep going on with these kinds of plays, I feel like it's really gonna send like big message.
Thank you so much, Ma.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what you guys were saying. I definitely agree. Like, let's keep up this momentum. I like what's happening now, and I want to see more. And I think what I've seen and what I've learned from this show is that this is what students want. This is what the students in the theater department want and on the campus want. And I couldn't have imagined how amazing this process would be for me as an actor and as a student at Rollins. And so I love the reception that this show has gotten. And so I'm very excited to see what bringing more of these stories to the Rollins stage will bring for the empathy and conversations and change that we're seeing now.
Definitely. And I think I echo everything everyone said. I'm so happy to be able to work on our first Black show. And I know it won't be our last one. Like Lisa said, the department's been amazing in making sure that we continue to amplify these voices. And even this time, there wasn't a question on will we have enough people to cast. It was we're doing the show. It needs to be done now. And I really appreciate that. And it's reaching time for us to wrap up. So I want to thank you guys so much for talking and answering questions. And everyone watching, thank you guys for joining us for our Talkback and for our closing of Ohio State Murders and our closing of our Annie Stripped. We have one more show tonight at 8 p.m., which is The Empty Space. So if you're watching it, thank you so much. And if you want a ticket to see it or an email reservation link, because we're all on Zoom and StreamYard, you can email right now and get your link, rollinsboxoffice.edu. That's it. Yeah. Rollins box office at Rollins. Chelsea's going to put it in the chat. I can't remember the email and I practiced it 12 times before I said it. But thank you all. Bye.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.